It says, always keep an eye on paranormal. Now he can deliver the supernatural. Many will attempt to show that science has proven miracle. Wrap yourself in the mystery of the Shroud of Turin. His speech is 10 to 12 minutes, and it's called God, Naked Jesus, Resurrection, Bundle of Joy.
Thank you.
Did I get that right or wrong?
God nuked. Nuked. Jesus, that's funny.
Making got our attention.
Naked.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There is a naked part though, but maybe. Well,
I guess I need to get my glasses adjusted.
Oh, I don't know.
Go with Nuked.
Okay, sounds good.
Nuked it.
Get an oil cell up here.
It's like never a notch.
Is that like bacon?
Go with a notch.
There we go. Okay.
It's not gonna collapse on you.
Well, I need that top part. Miracles. It's a miracle. Miracles. We all like miracles, right? What is a miracle? Well, I guess it's something that's impossible. No, it can't be impossible, otherwise it wouldn't exist. Maybe highly improbable. It's the probability is so astronomical that it won't, it couldn't happen. Well, then Eunice in Las Vegas winning the lottery, that's a miracle. Well, probably a miracle for Eunice, but it's every time someone wins a lottery isn't a miracle. Right? But Jesus walking on the water, now that's a miracle. Well, what? Because it's so impossible to think of. And even the funny thing in that story is, Peter was in the boat, and some other people were in the boat, and they saw Jesus, they thought he was a ghost. And they just said, come on. Jesus says, come on, the water's fine. Peter gets out of the boat, and he's walking on the water. And then he gets a shadow of fear, a little bit of slice of doubt, looks down, and he falls in the water. So a little doubt, and he's in the water, he's in the drink. So miracles, right? Well, I don't know how I can prove a miracle, but yeah, we're going to try. Well, I'm just going to go right to it. This is about the Shroud of Turin. That's what it's often called. It's the burial cloth of Christ. Now, let's see. If you haven't gone to Sunday school, here we go. We're going to have a little help here. If Jesus was on the cross, he dies. Now they put a little shroud over his head, and they take him down off the cross, and Joseph of Arimathea has this nice linen cloth, right? That's 14 feet long, 3.5 feet wide, or 8 cubits by 2 cubits. So they put the cloth down, and they put Jesus on top of the cloth inside the tomb. And then they roll the cloth on top like that. And some people think he was buried face down, but we're going to stick with the face up thing. But when they put him on like this, then they roll the cloth over. They didn't account for it rolling over his head, so it's actually his feet kind of stick out. And this cloth stays on him in the tomb. And to give it a little flavor for the biblical account, it's mentioned in a record, this biblical record. So here's a story, right? So the women go, oh my gosh, they go to the tomb, and they go, oh my gosh, no one's there. And they go tell the guys, and the guys are like, they don't believe women. Like, yeah, women. So the guys run up to the tomb, Peter and John, or James. Peter and James run up to the tomb. And this is this little quip, little bit here. This is out of John, of course. So, Peter and the other disciples went toward the tomb. The two were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter, because he was younger, and reached the tomb first. He bent down and looked and saw the linen wrappings in the tomb. So Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb. He saw the linen wrappings lying there, and the cloth that had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen, but rolled up by itself. The other disciples reached the tomb, also went in, they saw and believed. They didn't realize yet that in the scripture he was to rise from the dead. They didn't even know he was supposed to rise from the dead at that point. But they saw that and they believed. What did they see? They saw the cloth. What made them believe? It was just like empty and there's a cloth there, right? So what's the story of this thing? Well, you're gonna go, let me get something out of the way real fast. Okay, in 1988, the Shroud was carbon-14 tested. And it was carbon-14 tested by a group of scientists, right? This was the, I don't know, well, there was a group of scientists that they took samples. Well, they have there's a STURP investigation of about 33 scientists. They took samples from the cloth. They took sticky tape. This one guy took sticky tape, and you pull off little samples, just hundreds of these little samples of tape, sticky sample tapes. Some of them took a piece of the cloth, which, I mean, if you look at the thing, it's like, they took it from the most contaminated part of the cloth because they didn't want to destroy it. So they took a part from the little bit. They took the sample and divided it into 7 pieces, and 7 different laboratories tested it. Now, they came back with the date of, it can't be 2,000 years old, it dates between 1250 and 1350, right in the Middle Ages. And they're like, well, okay, so it's a fake. And it went all over the news, it went worldwide. The Shroud of Turin is a fake, it's a forgery, it's not 2,000 years old. Well, no, that's not really quite the truth. What happened is a little later they retest the samples, and that carbon-14 in 1988 is bogus to the max. One thing is, the shroud, being all folded up, was in a church in a box, and the church had a fire in 1532. The box, made it of silver, melted, and the church burned, but the cloth survived with burn holes all in it. So when you look at the cloth, the shroud, and you unfold it, there's these dark lines and holes and patches in it. And the image is very, very faint. Well, they carbon-14 the repairs. They put repairs on it and sewed the repairs in there. And they carbon-14 that. And this guy, this one of the original STURP guys, figured that out, and they went for resampling. They actually dated it with an X-ray mass spectrometry at, let's get the date out of the way. I got so many notes. They were somewhere. They dated it between like 1550. Oh gosh. Well, it's plus or minus 100 years anyways. But it's definitely within 2,000 years. It is that old. And it's not a big deal because they have linen cloths that if they're kept dry can last from 5,000 to 8,000 years old. So it's no big deal that this exists as a piece of cloth. I myself was like, an image, no. But it went through a big history. Now, Providence, where it came from, is a big thing. Now, originally it's in Jerusalem. It gets captured. It's in Odessa, known as, I think, the mandolin, because it's folded up. You just see the face. It's in the mandolin. People in Constantinople, I should get these dates right. people in Constantinople in the year 943 come to Odessa, take it, bring it to Constantinople. A crusader, after they sack Constantinople, takes it, and it winds up in the Savoy family, and it gets presented in the year 1357. Look, we have the Shroud in 1357. Does that account for everything? There's a couple hundred missing years, but it kind of has a travel bit. And here's something funny. In Odessa, when they found it, and then they came over from Constantinople, in Odessa, it was folded up where it was just like the face. You just see the face, right? And art in the world depicted Jesus as a young Roman guy with curly hair and no beard, clean shaven. This is what Jesus looked like, because they, from ancient Rome, and he's like a Roman guy, clean shaven. After Odessa, all the art changes. He has the long hair and the beard. And it's like, they're looking at this face, and then it changes what they depict him as. So there's a little bit of the providence, a little bit of the fire, and something like that. But what about this thing? Well, let's get something straight here. They went testing, and when they went and tested, there's no pigments. There's no art. There's no paint. There's no anything. The Stirp team that went and investigated for 6 days solid, that's the only time they got to see it, 50 scientists. We're trying to figure out, well, we know what the burn marks are. How is the image made? And they don't know. And one thing interesting about that, there's no paint. They're saying it's a medieval forgery. Maybe Leonardo da Vinci did it. He painted himself in the picture. See, look at it. It looks like Leonardo, doesn't it? No, there's no paint. So how is the image made? The best they can figure out, it was some type of burn from radiation, an ultraviolet radiation burst. Really brief, made this imprint. Now, when you look at the linen, it's made out of threads. And each thread has maybe 200 fibrils. So think of a cable with 200 fibrils. The image is on a couple of the top fibrils on the top of it. It doesn't even go through the cloth. It's just on the very top. If you went to the shroud and kind of went like that, you'd probably erase it. I don't know. So they figure, oh, and by the way, there's blood stains. Who is this person, right? Now, I did this little picture. I had another one, but I did this one, and I'm just trying to show the image and the blood stains without the burn holes. So there's a bunch of things, little pot marks where he got whipped. So he got whipped. There's a big blood stain where he got stabbed by the lance. There's hole mark blood stains on not the hand, not the wrist, right in the heel bar. Yeah, Romans, they found the most painful way to do everything, and they knew the most painful. So, and the crown of thorns, there's blood things. Now, who else could it be? Okay, the crown of thorns, one thing. There's a crown of thorns. No one else in history has had this. Did I tell you that this is the most scientifically studied artifact in the whole history of the world? The most studied artifact. There's no one else. So they figure, okay, maybe it's the historical crisis, 2,000 years old. How is the image made? Well, there's so much information, I gotta go right to the conclusion here. The people in Los Alamos, the guys that made the atomic bomb, were figuring out that, we can make that on a linen cloth if you irradiate it with sort of an ultraviolet laser beam at about 2.5 billion watts. right? Now these guys are finical in their studies. I mean, these are scientists, right? So these numbers aren't just pulled out of the air. So the image cannot be reproduced by modern technology right now, as we know it. The image was produced at the subatomic particle level. So here's the body, here's the cloth. It's on both sides, though, right? So they're thinking that the only way this can happen is if the body radiates out 2.5 billion watts at 1/40th of a billionth of a second.
Cool.
Now, this is kind of like if you had all the ultraviolet lasers in the world, which you can't really get, and you like all the floodlights in the 50,000 seat stadium, that's about wattage. A stadium, complete lit stadium full of watts. Poof, right? And because of the 3D X-ray-like value of the image, I mean, some parts you can see bones, you can see little things that he's buried with, like some rabbi stuff, and even a belt. I got to add this. They found a belt, and it's a snakeskin belt, and they figure the type of belt is a python. So Jesus is buried with a python snakeskin belt. Cha! As well as some other stuff. The nails, too, are still there. But the body itself had to have been irradiating light straight up and straight down, not like a light bulb, but straight up and straight down, and the body had to dematerialize. So basically it goes poof, and the cloth just goes and flattens out. So what was inside, and then it just flattens. And the thing is totally flattened out. And it's just like, there's no other way they can figure that it's happened. So kind of, in conclusion, does this prove a miracle? Well, this proves, possibly proof, scientific, that it's the resurrection event. Now that's what they're thinking. Does it really prove it? I'll leave it up to you. But every atom in his body irradiated out, making it passing through solid material, and that big puff of, basically, God nuked Jesus. Poof! And the cloth went flat, and then he's not there. And there are accounts, if you look in the Bible, of him walking through walls, so I don't know about that part. But if this, I'm going to say in conclusion, if this is kind of a miracle proof of sorts, it's kind of good news. There's oodles of other stuff, but I can't get to it. But this is kind of a proof of, wow. Because if a miracle is something that God intervenes or higher power comes into play as an authority, then that means other stuff, little miracles, are possible. If the big one's possible, then other little ones are possible too, right? We all like miracles. Who doesn't like miracles in their life, right? Oh gosh, I won the lottery. It was a miracle. So my conclusion is there's the closest to scientific proof that we have of something of divine origin actually happening. Poof, and there's the image. And it's in Turin, Italy, and I don't know. They might retest it too. They might go for it, but I don't know. It's that old, and there it is. Thank you. Good stuff.
It's kind of like how Obi-Wan disappears in New Hope.
And Yoda. You know how Yoda went?
He just... And then Darth Vader's little just like stepping on his cloak. Remember Yoda? He's 900 years old. He disappears.